Hello everyone, my name is Rob, welcome to Kinetic Rugby League. In this video I'll be giving you my NRL Round 7 predictions. So to see a recap of last week, I'll leave them up on the screen for you now. 4 out of 8 this week is the bare minimum that I'll accept. I usually want as a minimum 5, but 50% I can just about accept, but it's just not good enough at all. Overall average has not been great this season, but I always say this every week. I've got a good feeling about this one. Perfect 8 out of 8 this week. I'm sure of it. But we'll crack on with the first game. So kicking things off, we have the Roosters versus Storm. Starting with league position, Roosters sit in 9th, Storm sit in 2nd. In terms of recent form, Roosters have won 2 and lost 3. Storm have won 4 and lost 1 in their last 5. In terms of general stats, Roosters have a 50% win rate, 79% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 88.1%. On the side of Melbourne Storm, they have an 80% win rate, 76% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 87.8%. Looking at players that should be out and in this week, in terms of players out for the Roosters, that would include Satili Tupanua, Dom Young, Sandon Smith is a question mark, Spencer Leniu, and Billy Smith. They're all key names that are currently out at the moment. In terms of players coming back in this week, there should be James Tedesco and Sam Walker, so huge inclusions there for the Roosters. On the side of Melbourne Storm, players out include Tui Kamikamica, and players in include Sua Fa'alongo, but I don't think he's really going to be featuring. But Tui Kamikamica is a big miss for that forward pack. The Roosters are such a weird team, man. They're so weird. You know what? Melbourne Storm are weird, but we'll start with the Roosters. I have so little trust in this Roosters team. I don't know when to place my trust in them and when to go against them. I can't place them at all. I thought the game last week would be fairly understandable. The Knights have been okay. They've not been great, but they've been okay against a Roosters team that is just such a question mark. I don't know what Roosters team we're going to get week to week. I have a feeling that they're going to be competitive in this game, but I don't know. I don't understand this team at all. They can go from opening teams up left, right and centre to just not being able to catch a ball for 80 minutes. I don't understand them. This is against a Melbourne Storm team that on paper I think is stronger. I think we could all agree is stronger, especially looking at that spine. But they don't know how to win a game by 13 plus, which is really annoying, especially when I'm trying to bet for Melbourne Storm to win 13 plus. I don't know if it's just the teams that they're playing against having a good day, or whether it's the Melbourne Storm just aren't that good particularly. But what I've noticed with Melbourne Storm is they get out of shape very easily. The moment things aren't in a structure and they don't defend against a team that's playing with a typical attacking structure, they're out of shape and they don't really know what to do. The scramble defense can be good at times, but the moment things are just a little bit awkward, they crumble. They know how to apply pressure on teams, and that's what I think they'll do. I think they'll have a lot of pressure on the Roosters, but the moment something goes a little bit wrong, the Roosters will capitalise. But then again, this is the Roosters that have been extremely weird, so maybe they just won't. Maybe they just won't. I am tempted to still back Melbourne Storm because I still don't have full trust in the Roosters. There is a world in which I can see the Roosters absolutely winning this game. I think some people will definitely be taking them, and that is understandable. I think based off results and the fact that in the clutch moments, Melbourne Storm have been getting it done, I'm going to lean that way. In terms of bets, I think taking a Xavier Coates try is a very reliable bet in this game, because those edges for the Roosters have been a little bit weird, and down that left hand side Melbourne Storm have been putting up points, so I think a Xavier Coates try is likely. But in terms of a prediction, I'm going to go with Storm to win 1 to 12 points. Next up, we have the Dragons versus the Warriors, starting with league position. Dragons sit in 13th, Warriors sit in 7th. In terms of recent form, in the last 5, Dragons have won 2, lost 3. The Warriors have won 3, lost 1, and drawn 1. In terms of general stats, the Dragons have a 50% win rate, 75% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 89.9%. And on the side of the Warriors, they have also have a 50% win rate, 81% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 89.5%. Looking at players in and out, there's only real key outs to talk about. So the Dragons on their side, they have Jack Bird, will be missing for this game. And on the side of the Warriors, in general, they have Jazz Davanga, Bunty Afoa, Dylan Walker, Freddie Lussick, Luke Metcalf, and Murata Niokore. So quite a few key players missing. The main reason why I'm not so worried about the Warriors, even given the Dragons' performance against the West Tigers, is because the depth of the Warriors is insane, and they still have so many more key players to fill in those positions. I think they'll be completely fine. I think the Dragons will certainly have their moments, and as much as it might be easy to say, oh yeah, any teams, or near enough any half-decent team is going to beat the Dragons 13+, there's a certain resilience to them. There is a level of quality to them much higher than what they had last season. Carl Flanagan has actually been a real solid inclusion to that team and is offering a little bit more help to Ben Hunt, who can control games, who is an elite player, but he's got a little bit more help now. And the fact that, new coach, new system, they're a slightly different team. I think teams are also learning to adjust to how they play as well. So there's a reason why the Dragons might make it interesting to a degree. But on the side of the Warriors, they have been incredible. I thought they'd win the game against the Seagulls, helped out by a very soft penalty. But it is what it is. The point being there that they still competed against a very strong team in the Manly Seagulls. So that is another piece of evidence to me that the Warriors are still to be taken extremely seriously. Even if they were battered, I still would have felt pretty confident with a Warriors win. In terms of bets, I think looking at a Zach Lomax try is very, very likely. I might also consider an Adam Fanua-Blake try as well. The Dragons can be pretty weak through the middle, defending their own line, and I can see Fanua-Blake crashing over for one. So maybe Zach Lomax to score, Warriors to win in a bet. I'm considering it with Fanua-Blake, but I'm going to go with the Warriors to win 1 to 12 points. Next up, we have the Eels versus the Dolphins, starting with league position. The Eels sit in 11th, Dolphins sit in 5th in terms of recent form. Eels have won 2 and lost 3 in their last 5, and for the Dolphins, they've won 3 and lost 2 in their last 5. In terms of general stats, Eels have a 50% win rate, 80% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 88.2%. And on the side of the Dolphins, they have a 60% win rate, an 81% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 89.4%. Now, looking at players in and out. Two fairly key players missing. There's Matt Doherty's out, but then Mitchell Moses is still out. So a huge miss on the side of the Eels. On the side of the Dolphins, Tabai Fidel is out. Cody Nikorima, Tom Flegler, Herbie Farnworth, Anthony Milford, Felice Kafusi, Kurt Donahue. Just a few reserve players. In terms of players coming back in, Connolly Lemuelu and Max Plath. Doesn't really cut it for replacements for the Dolphins there. The one thing that's helpful for the Eels going into this game is that we see, even without Mitchell Moses, that they can still compete, they can still win games. The Eels are another team that's very weird. I hate betting for them, I hate betting against them. The one thing that I always notice about the Eels is that, typically speaking, even with key players missing, they have a really reliable structure that can still compete with most teams. So, they tend to be a bit of a bogey team for the Panthers, but, you make them play against the Sharks, or Melbourne Storm, or the Warriors, any other decent team from last season, like when the Rabbitohs were playing really well, or even, the Broncos last season or this season. I think the Eels will always find a way to compete, and they have a really sound structure, just sometimes they don't put it together. So they can always compete, but a little bit inconsistent, sometimes don't know where to kind of lean with them. The Dolphins, with the key players that they're missing, it's going to be extremely difficult. Now, I'm pretty sure Sean O'Sullivan's going to step into that number 7 role. I think with his kicking game, I think it'll give the Dolphins some field position advantages, but in terms of their execution, not having Tabuai Fidel or Nikarima, they won't have the punch from Flegler through the middle. Milford certainly can offer things with runs in behind. Herbie Farnworth with his individual ability is going to be difficult to replace for this week. And this is, assuming that all of these guys are definitely not playing. I think the Eels should be fairly comfortable in this game. If I was to bet, I'd probably take the Eels minus 6.5. That's their current line at the moment. But I'm going to go with the Eels to win 1 to 12 points. Next up, we have the Panthers versus the Tigers. Starting with league position, the Panthers sit in 6th, the Tigers sit in 12th. In terms of current form, the Panthers have won 3 and lost 2 in their last 5 games. The Tigers have won 2 and lost 3 in their last 5 games. In terms of general stats, the Panthers have a 60% win rate, 77% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 86.8%. On the side of the Tigers, they have a 40% win rate, 81% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 87.3%. Looking at players in and out on the side of the Panthers, Jerome Luai will be out, and coming in is Scott Sorensen and Nathan Cleary. He should be available for this week. On the side of the Tigers, in terms of players out, they have Latu Fainu, Startoa, and Adam Dewey. Of course, Adam Dewey's been out for about a decade at this point. In terms of players coming back in, they should have John Bateman, Samuel Fainu, and Lachlan Galvin should all be available this week, looking at the injury list. I'll start with the Tigers first. I backed them last week because they'd been building trust with the performances that they put in, like against the Sharks and other performances around that. They were building some trust. The Dragons, I referenced before, have made some improvements, but that felt like a game that the Tigers should have won, but they looked clueless. They didn't know what they were doing. Not even just like on the last tackle, not knowing what to do on the last tackle, but just generally throughout the set, they had no clue what they were doing. Absolutely no idea. For me, that rests on Aiden Caesar, a little bit on Appy Coruscant, but mostly Aiden Caesar. It's like, you're the number 7, pal. Like, get them set. What are you doing? So, a little bit disappointing on the side of the Tigers. The Panthers, they were on a bye last week, so they'll be fit and ready to go for this game. Full study on everything that the Tigers do. And, Jerome Luai is going to be a big miss, but another game for Brad Schneider to keep kind of stretching his legs, get some more game time. And Nathan Cleary coming back in is always going to be huge for the Panthers. And he is a game winner, so that's pretty much how I'm sort of leaning with this one. In terms of a specific bet for this game, I think a Brian Toto try is very likely if you were to go with anything there. A Toto try, I think I see as the most likely scenario. But in terms of a prediction, I'm just going to go with the Panthers to win 13+. Next up, we have the Titans versus the Seagulls, starting with league position. The Titans sit in 16th. The Seagulls sit in 8th. In terms of recent form, the Titans have won 0 in their last 5, and the Seagulls have won 2, lost 2, and drawn 1. In terms of general stats, the Titans have a 0% win rate, 80% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 87.2%. On the side of the Seagulls, they have a 50% win rate, 76% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 85.7%. Now, let's look at the people that are in and out. In terms of the Titans players out, Jaden Campbell, probably unavailable. Phil Sammy and Tino Fasu Malawi is going to be out long term. In terms of players coming back in, Keenan Palacia should be available. On the side of the Seagulls, players out include Ben Trebojevic, Lachlan Croker, Josh Alloway, and Toa Sipley is long-term. In terms of players coming back in that should be available, Jason Saab, Matt Lodge, Nathan Brown, and Ruben Garrick. Huge inclusions there for the Manly Seagulls. So there was a little bit of fight, bit of desire from the Titans. Really solid effort. Very unfortunate to kind of lose the way that they did so late into the game. Of course, in extra time, but I wasn't expecting that from the Titans. I knew at some point there'd be a switch and they'd be competitive. I didn't expect it to be against the Raiders because I thought they'd be very, quite surefire in that game. But there is life in that team. There are individuals. I will always reference them. AJ Brimson can be a top player. Kieran Foran's got plenty of experience. Tanner Boyd really stepped up last season, but, still need a little bit more. Jaden Campbell, unfortunately, is going to be out, but Alefiana Khan-Pereira, I love him. I think he's so exciting as a player. I think he's great. I think he's absolutely fantastic. I just love seeing him with the ball. Like in one-on-one scenarios or just bursting down the line, I think he's so exciting to watch. I love Calm Pereira. I really, really do. On the side of the Seagulls, missing Ben Trebojevic is extremely unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world when you consider the players that they can bring back in. Ruben Garrett can fill in that centre position again. Jackson Barlow can, if I remember correctly, can switch back over to the other side. Jason Saab can take his usual position on the wing. Matt Lodge is a absolute unit that can punch holes through this Titans forward pack. So I think the Seagulls should be pretty safe in this game. In terms of a bet, I'm going to go with a Jackson Barlow try. That's where I'd kind of lean it. This is with all these provided that they are actually playing and nothing happens, in training or anything like that. But I think a Jackson Barlow try is pretty much where I'm going to be leaning with this one in terms of a specific bet. But for the game, I'm going to go with the Seagulls to win 13+. Next up, we have the Broncos versus the Raiders. Starting with league position, the Broncos sit in 10th, Raiders sit in 3rd. In terms of recent form, the Broncos have won 3 and lost 2 in their last 5 games, and so have the Raiders. They've won 3, lost 2. In terms of general stats, the Broncos have a 50% win rate, 76% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 88.5%. On the side of the Raiders, they have a 67% win rate, 83% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 89.4%. Looking at players out and in, on the side of the Broncos, out includes Adam Reynolds, Brendan Piacora, Dean Mariner, and Payne Haas is a question mark, so he also overlaps into the in category, so we'll kind of have to see what the squad announcement is, whether they want to bring him back early or keep him out an extra week. On the side of the Raiders, in terms of players out, Zach Hosking is on the injury list, Corey Horsburgh has a few more weeks, Elliot Whitehead and Jordan Rapiner, and in terms of players coming back in, Albert Hapuate is the only sort of key name on the way back. So this is quite an interesting one for me because the Broncos still without Adam Reynolds. It's another week for Jock Madden to step into that role. It's not a last-minute adjustment. They've had a game together. They can then have a full week of training together as well. And hopefully have a plan, have an idea of exactly what they want to do. So he's not playing off the cuff. They have a plan specific for him ready to go. But I think with that, a lot is going to be put on the shoulders of Ezra Mam and Reece Walsh especially. I think he'll have his hands all over the ball. He'll be holding onto that thing non-stop. When you see him running out the back, he's getting that ball. He's taking on those edges. And given his quality, his speed, his turn of pace, oh my God, he is going to break that line multiple times. Unless the Raiders have an insane defensive day, I think Reece Walsh is going to wipe the floor with the Raiders. The Raiders are still a really strong team. I think Jamal Fogarty can set a great tone, giving them a lot of control in that game. Strange is developing into a fantastic player. His run, especially towards the end of that game against the Titans, was so clutch. For someone of his age, he has been a fantastic inclusion. I didn't know what was going to happen to the Raiders when Jack Whiten left. But it's not saying that he's, the perfect replacement or he's lived up to Jack Whiten yet and what he did for the Raiders for so many years. But you can't deny that Ethan Strange has been a terrific inclusion to this team so far. I'm really excited to see where the rest of his career goes, more specifically this season. But I think the Broncos, we have seen, even with the deficiencies, players missing, that let's assume that Payne Haas doesn't play. I think they've got enough in the forwards and they're developing well without key players and can clearly still pull out strong performances. The Raiders have been a touch off the mark. They're still very competitive week to week, but some moments are just slightly off. And because I think it's going to be Reece Walsh's day, getting the ball time and time again, he can open up anybody. But if Payne Haas is playing, mate, that's going to be hard to stop. Because his ability to push through the line to get those quick play the balls and to be able to even offload the ball with 2 and 3 men in the tackle is ridiculous. And to drag players 15 metres down the field. So in terms of a bet, I'd probably take Reece Walsh try, because I see him popping up with one from a great moment of individual brilliance. But I'm going to go with the Broncos to win. 1 to 12 points. Next up, we have the Bulldogs versus the Knights. Starting with league position, the Bulldogs sit in 15th, the Knights sit in 14th. In terms of current form, the Bulldogs have won 2 and lost 3 in their last 5, and the Knights have won 2 and lost 3 also in their last 5. In terms of general stats, the Bulldogs have a 33% win rate, 77% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 87.4%. On the side of the Knights, they also have a 33% win rate, but a 79% completion rate and a tackle efficiency of 89.1%. Looking at players out and in, on the side of the Bulldogs, it's not looking good. In terms of players out currently on the injury list, there's Max King, Kurt Mann, Blake Taft, Blake Wilson, Jacob Preston, and Ryan Sutton. Few of those are to be confirmed, so some might get rushed back in. We'll see. In terms of players coming back in, Kurt Morin's the only likely player that would come back in. In terms of players out, there's only one, and that's Tyson Frizzell. No players to mention coming back in. I don't think there's anyone else on the injury list from what I remember. So the Bulldogs, there are certainly moments in their game, I think against Melbourne Storm, spreading the ball down the left edge with Burton and getting involved with Josh Addo-Carr. The Bulldogs can create opportunities. But with those players missing, I think it's going to be very, very, very difficult to beat the Knights through the middle, considering the players they're missing and that the Knights have available, and to spread the ball around the edges. I think they'll find ways to score. They'll absolutely do it, because you get Matt Burton's kicking game, putting in those little chip kicks, not even just bombing the ball, but his precision with the chip kicks are pretty nice. And when you've got to play with the speed of Josh Addo-Carr to kind of make up for any inaccuracies in a kick, he can just kind of get to an area quicker than anybody else. You can create those flash moments from nothing. As long as there's a player in support for him to offload that ball to, the Bulldogs can really punish the Knights on that left-hand side. For the Knights, though, they're a weird one. Watching them against the Roosters, and so far this season, the way it feels to me is that they're not particularly strong as a team, but they have enough individuals that are just getting the job done in moments. Like, Bradman Best can create an opportunity individually. The same with Kalen Ponga can create it individually. Phoenix Crosland or Brayley, they can create moments individually. Or Hastings, Cogger. They can do it individually throughout that team, but as a unit, they don't really click that much. The way that they ended that game against the Roosters was abysmal. Like, trying to do a little kick through that, like, if you have a bit of time to maybe get the ball back, like to pin them back, sure. But on the last play, you aren't going to spread the ball and get it in the hands of Hastings to get that thing up to Kalen Ponga to break through the line. You're really not going to spread the ball on the last play. It's just kind of such a poor way to end that game, regardless of whether it should have been a sin bin towards the end or not. I personally don't care, because the way they ended that game was poor. Spread the ball. Get the ball in Kalen Ponga's hands more. So yeah, the thing is with this Knights team, until they click as a team like they did last year and they went on that huge win streak, it's just about the individuals creating those moments. Bradman Best is going to be huge. Kalen Ponga is going to be huge. In terms of a bet, I would probably look at a Greg Marju try. Given the deficiencies on the right-hand side defensively for the Bulldogs, I think a Greg Marju try, if he's going to be playing this week, is a real possibility. So that's where I'd lean for a bet. But in terms of my prediction, I'm going to go with the Knights to win, 1 to 12 points. Finally, for this week, we have the Sharks versus the Cowboys. Starting with league position, the Sharks sit in first. The Cowboys sit in fourth. In terms of current form, the Sharks have won 4 and lost 1 in their last 5 games. The Cowboys have won 3 and lost 2. In terms of general stats, the Sharks have an 80% win rate, 77% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 88.5%. On the side of the Cowboys, they have a 67% win rate, 75% completion rate, and a tackle efficiency of 88.3%. Looking at players out and in, on the side of the Sharks, out includes Sione Katoa and Royce Hunt, are the key names missing. And in terms of key players coming back in, they have Braden Hamlin-Uele and Dale Finucane. On the side of the Cowboys, players out include Helam Lukey, Cohen Hess, and Zach Lay, but they're the biggest key players unavailable at the moment. The Cowboys, I will reiterate what I said last week, talking about what Braithen Astor said about Melbourne Storm last year. The Cowboys are good, not great. There are still too many problems with that team, especially on the defensive side. I think controlling games is a huge issue. I typically trust Scott Drinkwater and Tom Dearden to put themselves in positions to be effective. But I don't know what kind of Chad Townsend we're going to get week to week, because his kicks can just go very wayward and be very ineffective. I think as a leader, I think he's great. I think the team responds to him. He understands the game extremely well, and he's maybe underrated in that sort of mindful sense. But in terms of execution, can be quite poor sometimes from Chad Townsend. The Cowboys do have incredible individuals that can batter teams through the middle and on the edges, but this Sharks team are just built different. Now, they also have their deficiencies as well, but they are huge through the middle, and they'll only get bigger next year when Fanua Blake joins. But they're huge through the middle. They've got great players on the edges like Wilton and Nikora, and the way that they spread the ball, especially this season now, that left-hand side is incredible. Their wingers are incredible finishers, really skillful players, great in the air, and great right into the corners, especially Ronaldo Mulatalo, which is why I think bet-wise, Ronaldo Mulatalo try, I think is very likely, because the Cowboys are a little bit off from time to time. I don't think it'd come from a kick, because that would be Cal Felt's side, so if he's playing, I think Felt's tall enough to deal with a lot of the aerial threats that Mulatalo will put in. He might win one or two, Mulatalo, but I think spreading the ball, the Sharks tend to find ways around teams, whether they play close quarters or they spread the ball, they play flat or deep, they can do it all. I think it'll be a fairly close game. It'll be competitive. The Cowboys will have their moments, but I think the Sharks, just the way that they execute, their power through the middle, the way they spread the ball, I think Nico Hines and Braden Trindle, both reliable players. So I think the Sharks should be okay in this game. So in terms of a bet, I'd take a Ronaldo Mulatalo try, but for a prediction, I'm going to take the Sharks to win 1 to 12 points. So to recap my predictions for this week, I'm going to take Storm, Warriors and Eels, all 1 to 12 points, Panthers and Seagulls 13+, and I'm going to take the Broncos, Knights and Sharks, all 1 to 12 points. In terms of winners' confidence, I'm at about 70%. I think there's a few potential upsets in here, or a few things going the other way, based on player availability. In terms of margin confidence, about 80%, usually pretty confident on this, less so than normal. I think there's a few that could maybe be a 13+, but I think I'm fairly confident all round, but given how things have gone this season, who knows at this point. So that's going to be it for my NRL Round 7 predictions. If you have your own predictions, do let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know how you got on last week. But that's going to be it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.